Hello, hello. Morning. All right, I think we are live. Hi, everyone. All right, yep. So the chat's working. Hey, Javin. Good to have you here. Hey, Oscar. Awesome. Glad to hear that. Um, cool. Yeah, doing all right. Perfect. All right. So I think the YouTube one is working. I think that there was like some issues with the new version or the older version of OBS, which is what I use to stream with Twitch. So if there's anyone already in Twitch and wants to comment, just to test the chat, but everything seems to be working fine. So we can go ahead and just get started because we're gonna start with a new project today, or at least something new that I can use as an example to show you a bunch of new techniques. They're not really new, but something different, right? Um, just so some of you might already know that I sent an email this morning with a couple of announcements. So the pack of brushes that I've been working on, which is the cloth and drapery brushes pack, it's available now. I'll talk about that later on, and I'll show you some of the examples as well, and I'll share the link as well if you are interested. But yeah, so I thought we could do something related, something that I could use as a playground to show you some of the tools that I developed and that sort of thing. But at the same time, doing something interesting and cool that hopefully also shows different processes that you might be interested in. So okay, cool, great. So Twitch is working fine. Perfect. So what I'll do is I'm gonna start blocking out a new character. I think this time I'm gonna go for a very stylized slash almost comical character, but I'm gonna try to do a full character really quickly. So yeah, like always, I'm just gonna start with a bunch of primitives. So let me just see. This is a subdivided sphere. Let's just delete that. All right, so we have this polysphere as a starting point. This could be the torso. So yeah, let's bring in the gizmo. And let's go ahead and squish this that fashion. And I'm going to rotate it as well. Like so. All right, so that's going to be the chest of the character. I'm going to append a cylinder. That's going to be the leg, or one of the legs. Let's see what, yeah, I think it's going to be pretty stylized anyway. And I do have some references for like clothing. I just have like Pinterest board open of different type of things. I mean, there's a wide variety, so it doesn't matter. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go for something like this. That's gonna be one of the legs. I'm gonna mirror and weld this just for the time being, so that you can have a better idea of what I'm doing. I'm gonna append another cylinder. Let's go into solo mode as well. So this is gonna be the arm of this weird character. So I'm gonna do a couple of things to get the blocking started of this specific arm, or this specific part of the body. So I'm gonna use the gear icon. I'm gonna use a taper deformer, and the taper deformer is something that I use very often to, again, generate this type of taper effect. And this is, let's say, the bottom one is where the wrist is going to be, and the top one is the shoulder. So I can just play around with the white cone, and that's changing the profile of that tapering effect. So I'm gonna go for something like this. Even a little bit more, and taper it a bit more as well. All right, I think I think that works. And I'm just gonna edit this slightly more. Yeah, I just wanted to leave the polyframe so you can see what I'm doing. I'm gonna hold Control and click and drag to mask these points, invert them with Control click on the canvas, center to the unmasked area so I can manipulate this area, and I just want to have a bit more control, just to taper that a little bit closer here. And another thing you can do is hold the Control and like what you have the gizmo selected and something else in the mesh masked. So basically this set of faces that I have in here, there are the only ones that I have in mask. I can hold Control, click and drag, and you can extrude things with the gizmo like so. So I'm gonna do that around there. Hold Control, click and drag again. Control, click and drag, and that's about it really. Let's clear the mask. So this is gonna be the kind of like an elastic band maybe that's around the wrist. Maybe we can even scale this a bit more. All right, so something like that. I think that works. We can also take this time before we do any more deformation and just go ahead and assign a different polygroup so that we have, we can manipulate this in a different way. Other than that, we can center it, get out of solo mode, and let's go ahead and place this where we want to. We can go for like the usual pose, but I think I'm just gonna use the gear icon as well to use the bend arc and do something like this. And that's kind of, yeah, that's gonna be like the jacket. Like I said, it's going to be a pretty stylized, weird looking character, but I think the focus for today should be on the techniques rather than the subject. But yeah, hopefully you're gonna like it. All right, so let's go ahead and do the same thing, mirror and well. So we're starting to get somewhere. Another thing we can do is let's block the shoes. So I'm just gonna hide one of these legs and delete it. Again, I just mirrored and welded so that you know kind of like where I'm going to with this. But yeah, I can replicate the same process with the legs. So I'm gonna use the gizmo gear icon, taper, and I'm gonna taper this like that. And just play with the white cone, which is the profile. All right, so that should be all right. Let's see the chat. Hey Alex, good to have you here. Right. So if you guys have any questions about anything that I'm doing, feel free to put it in the chat, and I'll I have it right next to me so I can have a look, and if I can, I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys have. All right. So for the maybe let's add some boots or something. So I'm going to duplicate the leg, which is in the same kind of like position, and I'm just going to scale that down and then up, or not up, but like proportionally. All right. We'll have to play around with the proportions a little bit more. Just trying to establish the placement of this. All right. Of course, this needs the actual boot or shoe. So I'm gonna append a sphere. I'm gonna take that sphere, and I'm just gonna place it there. And this is gonna be the boot. So let's just place it whatever we think will suit, and then use the flatten deformer, just to flatten that out. And this is still like just half a sphere, but we can deform it to achieve some kind of good shape. Something else you can do, and this is another deformer that I use often, is the soft modifier, the soft deformer, or deformer soft, sorry, this one right here. This creates kind of like a lattice around, like a cage, like a volume cage around the mesh, and you can just go ahead and enable symmetry. Like right now it is like set to 1, I think it's set to 0 is no symmetry, 1 is parallel, and 2 is mirror. So let's push this 2, hold control, and hold control, then alt, and basically select these points, and then you can just move them like so. So that way you have symmetry. So yeah, let's just push that. I'm gonna select only the ones at the bottom. And the way that you select points in this lattice is basically masking everything but the ones that you want to move. So in other words, if I want to move all of the ones on the left, I can hold control, click and drag, and mask everything but those, and you'll see they get selected. So what I'm doing is holding control just to select the ones that I want to move, control, and before I let go, I press alt to invert the masking selection, and that way I can just grab that line. And because we have the symmetry activated to mirror, I can just push this in a bit, right? And the same thing goes for the top. By the way, if you want, you can also add, let's do it here. You can add additional subdivisions. So maybe let's add one in this way, and perhaps another one this way. So that's a little bit easier to deform the areas that we want, just to make something a bit, I don't know, a bit more squarish. All right, let's push that one further. Let's go ahead and click accept. Maybe let's push this one. All right. Just don't want to make these too prominent, right? Just gonna be tiny little area here. With this type of stylized characters, it's all about the proportions, really. So this is probably the stage of this process that I spend the most time just tweaking things. But yeah, I think that should be good. Let's go ahead and complete the kind of like the blockout with a you know, with the head maybe. So let's go ahead and append a sphere. I'm gonna use the same type of sphere that I use for the boot, but this time I'm just gonna scale it, and this is gonna be smaller face or a smaller head. I'm gonna hold control to mask the bottom area, invert that, and hold control again, and then just extrude it and make kind of like a pill shape type of thing. And let's go ahead and rotate this around a little bit, lower it, and I think that works well. I think what I'll do is let me just test something out quickly. I'm gonna dynamesh that pill shape, right? So that's just a dynamesh. I just wanna test something out, like as an idea. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go for something like this. So it's kind of like yeah, this is gonna be not necessarily the face, but some kind of like piece of cloth that is like a hoodie or something that just encompasses the entire character here. So in fact, fact, let's just go ahead and append another sphere. And this is going to be the face inside. So let's go into transparency. All right, I think this is fine. And then we can tweak that in just a second. So, or let's just do it now, actually. So I'm going to enable symmetry. I'm going to use ZBrush and holding the Alt key just to reveal more of that face, right? Yeah, I think that works. Let's go ahead and take the torso and let's duplicate that. So I'm going to duplicate that torso, and this is going to be the actual jacket, the one that is going to be potentially merged or part of the arms anyway. So I'll do some color coding so that you have a better idea of what I'm doing. So let's do that. Just gonna scale it a tiny bit, and we can use the knife cut, the slice. What's the name? The knife curve. Sorry. Hold Control and Shift, and let's just cut through the model like that. I'm just gonna go for kind of like a bomber jacket type of thing. Yeah, something like that. And then we can use, whenever we use these knife curve and we kind of like cut the model, we end up with different polygroups. So, you know, that makes it a lot easier to, let's say, hold Control or use the, I mean, I am used to doing this. I'm going to show you what I'm used to do, but then I will show you another way, and that is probably easier for you. I'm used to hold Control and Shift, select something, mask it, invert the selection, invert the mask, and that's it. But you can do this like a bit more automatic than this. So you can just bring in the gizmo and click on Control once, and that will center the gizmo or like push the gizmo in the selected polygroup. So I can do the same thing for the top. So Control click, and Control click, and that basically isolates that polygroup, and this one is now masked. So yeah, it's pretty easy to just go ahead and hold Control, click once, and that's the gizmo right there in the center where I touched, and the rest is masked. So yeah, I can use this now to kind of like push this down a bit and scale it like so. A bit more. All right. So yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Now, obviously, we can smooth all of this out. Or we can, we can already dynamesh. I'm just gonna keep it very, very low res. All right. The other thing is I'm gonna try something else here. I'm gonna push this in. Yeah, so this is gonna be kind of like the idea for this jacket. We can do like an open jacket. That's probably a good idea. So one thing we can do is polish by groups. That way ZBrush is going to automatically polish the difference between those polygroups there. Right? Cool. And then we can basically isolate it. Hold Control and Shift to isolate that. Let's go double so that we can see inside. Delete hidden. We can also, we can also use, actually, before we delete hidden, right? So we still have that original piece. I'm going to use the knife lasso and just cut through this area of the model just to have kind of like the neck also separated. Just don't do that. Let's do it from a different angle. and mirror and weld, just in case. Yeah, that's probably better. So we have the separated. And then we can also use the same technique to cut through the center. So let's do that. Mirror and weld. Okay, so this is just a quick way to cut different parts of the model that you might need or that you might want to use. And then you can just go ahead and isolate just the one that you need, delete the rest, and then do a retopology and that sort of thing. So what I'll do is just keep it as it is right now, because I'm just thinking, you know what, let's just do it. Let's do it now. Hold Control and Shift, isolate these, delete hidden. Oops, sorry, wrong shortcut. Delete hidden. So now this is a single-sided mesh, and with these selected, we can go ahead and click on remesh half, right? And we can also do polish by groups, or just polish like that. Maybe that's too much. Let's polish by features, and we end up with like a nice kind of like rounded corner there. Okay, so we're getting there. I think I kind of like the body like that. We can push this. I don't know if higher or lower. Just trying to define this base. I think that works. Okay. I think the only thing that I'm missing is just to block this guy. Let's add some eyes quickly. So macro, I'm gonna click on append eyes, and this is a macro that you should have access to, and that produces a set of eyes. I don't know where they are actually. Ah, there you go. They're just inside. So yeah, ZBrush creates with that macro 2 spheres for the eyes, and then we can bring in the gizmo. I'm gonna also enable local symmetry and add the eyes for this guy. All right, I think maybe not. Maybe let's push them closer. All right, and then select the inner sphere, which was meant to be the face, and I'm just gonna push a couple of things here with the move brush. Let's enable AccuCurve, and just by holding the Alt key, we can push things along their normals. Right? So I think that works. So let's go ahead and complete the blocking, the setup, so that we can have like a bit more fun with the, with some of the brushes and that sort of thing. So I'm gonna, for the hands, I'm just gonna use a custom. So I have this toon base that I've set up. It's just a simple base, but something that I can quickly tweak to produce like a toon type of character. But I'm gonna use the hands, so I don't have to spend time doing that. So let's go ahead and isolate some areas. Let's do that. Yep, something like this, and delete hidden. I'm also gonna turn off symmetry, delete hidden, and I'm just gonna go ahead and copy and go back to our character and paste. And then I can take the hand, I'm gonna unify it, so make sure it fits the scale of this scene that I'm setting up. And I'm just going to place this I'm not entirely sure that this kind of like style, even though the hand is quite stylized, that would fit this character, but you know, look, we can change that later if it doesn't really work. But yeah, at least we have that blocking. So let's go ahead and mirror and weld that without local symmetry. Same thing for the pants. Same thing for the yeah, kind of like the boots. And that's it. Let's go ahead and go to the move brush again. Okay, so let's do a quick color coding so that we have a better idea of what this looks like. Actually, one more thing I want to do. Let's use a ring 3D. Yep, and I'm just gonna do kind of like a color, like the neck area for the jacket. Right, so some kind of like a puffy jacket with this type of thing. Let's use the move brush, and I'm just gonna adjust this. And for this, what I can do is kind of like hide the center. And let's go ahead and delete hidden. And I'm gonna also close holes, and then we can redynamesh. Or, you know, you don't have to close holes if you're gonna end up redynameshing, but that's just a quick way to get that started. And then obviously we can tweak the thickness and all of that, which is also something that I would do with the jacket. In fact, let's go ahead and do that already. I wanna go to geometry, dynamic subdivision, enable dynamic, and let's add thickness to this. So it's gonna be pretty thick just to go with in line with the kind of like stylization that I'm going for. I'm gonna turn off post subdivision to get a smoother version around the edges. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Right, so yeah, let's do some color coding now. I think the issue that I'm having is with the hands. I mean, not necessarily the hands, like just the proportions. So let me just fix that. So holding Control and Shift, delete hidden, right? So we have just one arm. And remember, we added some polygroups before we, you know, twisted the arm. So I'm gonna hold Control and Shift to isolate this bit. Control, invert the selection. Sorry, invert the masking. Bring in the gizmo center to the unmasked areas. And I'm just gonna scale this up quite a bit. And I think that that's the main issue I was having, just the size of it. So that way I can just take the hands and scale those, oops, with symmetry. And just exaggerate things a bit more. Yeah, I think that works a lot better. Let's mirror and weld. Oops, without local symmetry. Turn on perspective. And yeah, there you go. Alrighty, so I'm gonna take the body and I'm gonna split that. Not split, sorry, duplicate it. And that's just gonna be just a tiny bit of extra volume for the pants so that I can merge those two together. I'll show you what I mean. So I'm gonna take this mesh, which is the duplicate of the body. Let's take the knife cut and cut it right there in the middle. Well, not in the middle, but roughly there. So yeah, this is just what I wanted to create. Maybe inflate a tiny bit, right, so that you can see it's part of the pants there. So yeah, let's go ahead and do a quick color coding to understand a little bit this project, and then we focus on giving it a little bit more shape and making it more interesting. And hopefully I get to show you some of the new brushes that I released. So let's select the arms, and I'm just gonna select a color for the jacket. Let's go for a reddish tone. I'm gonna keep it actually. Let's do it like a red color. Let's click on fill object. I'm gonna repeat the process for this piece. Fill object. This piece as well, that is the jacket. Fill object. Then let's use maybe greenish tone for the the inner body or the shirt, which is also part of this thing. Let's select the hands. Let's use almost like a white color, and same thing for the head, for the face, and for the pants. Let's go for, I don't know, let's play around with some of the coloring and see. Yeah, maybe like a dark bluish tone. Let's saturate it. Yep, fill object. Same thing for the pants here, fill object. And for the boots, we can go for just a gray color. Let's see. Yeah, I think a darker color needs to be darker. So fill object. Same thing for bottom area. Now that's it. All right. So that, from the distance, and if we bring in the thumbnail as well, let me just change something. If we bring the silhouette, and from the distance, the silhouette I think is working. Yeah, I think it's working nicely. And you kind of like sort of tell the different pieces for these guys, and you see it's not, once you get the hang of it, it's not that complicated. Again, this is very stylized, so I can get away with just keeping the forms and the shapes very simple and very, close to the original geometrical shape that I use as a base. But now that I have this, let me just have a bit of water. All right, and so from this point onwards, what I'll do is I'm going to select the pieces that I want to adjust, make sure I have symmetry enabled, and with the move brush, I just want to edit things a little bit. So let's go ahead and push, let's say, the arms up a bit more, just so that we have a bit more of a shoulder area. Like that. Maybe here around the arms, just push this one. All right, and same thing here. Again, I don't want to distort the geometrical shapes as much. Let's do, you know what, I'm gonna show you something cool that I've been using lately. Again, it's one of those things that it came with the latest version of ZBrush, or the latest kind of like full version of ZBrush 2022, but it's something that I haven't used as much. And lately I'm kind of like getting into it because I deal with a lot of subtools in my projects. So for instance, this guy, we can use the visual groups like that. So I can say, okay, for so V1, you can see everything. For V2, you can see everything but the kind of like the jacket. So I'm gonna turn everything on, holding Shift, and then turn off everything that's pink for the jacket, right? So now if I go to V1, I see everything. V2, I see only this area. And then maybe V3, we can focus on just the pants, for example. So I'm just gonna enable that, so then I can see what's going on there. So you can set up all your visual groups in that fashion, and it's pretty handy. So let's say if I want to tweak the pants, I can just go to V3. Let's hold. Oops. Let's. use the select lasso. Sorry, masking this area. And let's go ahead and bring this closer. Like that. Let's go back to Visual 2. And let's adjust the body. So yeah, those visual groups, if you haven't tried them or if you haven't got into, they're really good if you're dealing with a project that has multiple subtools. So it's a quick way to organize things, and it doesn't take that much time. Like before, I used to do the same thing, but with groups, and I still do when I have lots of different subtools. Just because with proper groups, you can do other actions like moving the whole thing, or that sort of thing. You can just move the transform the entire folder, or boolean it. I don't know if that's a word, boolean it, but with the visual groups, you can organize things quickly as well. All right. So what I'll do is I'm gonna select this mesh and this mesh and the pants, and I'm just gonna merge them down. So let's merge down. All right. So if I go into solo mode, let's go back to the visual group 1. So now I have this that is a single mesh, but obviously we have different pieces and different polygroups. So let's dynamesh the whole thing with less resolution. 72. Yeah, I think that should be all right. And with this in dynamesh mode, we can basically spend some time just smoothing things out. So it's a little bit softer, the transition, but I want to maintain that really straight tubular shape. But we can give this guy a bit more of a bump here. Let's add just clay, the clay brush, just adding a bit of volume here at the back. There we go. Alrighty. So I think that's working. I think that's it for the blocking. Maybe let's work on the boots a little bit. Let's use the move brush, and I'm gonna enable the dynamic subdivision. Just want to see how it looks when it's subdivided. Yeah, and I'm just gonna move these with the move brush. I think what this is really is kind of like a leg warmer, basically, more than, I mean, it is part of the boot, but the boot itself can have like this thick leg warmer, almost like a fabric thing on top, rather than being like a single, you know what I mean? Hopefully you know what I mean. So more like that. All right. Nah, sorry. let's go back. I think the previous shape worked a little bit better when it wasn't all the way up. Alrighty. Cool. So let's bring the whole project or the whole character to the same level of polish in terms of the base, and then we can start with the details and add some stuff. So actually we haven't worked on the face much, so let's do a bit of playing around with this. So maybe let's create another group. So visual 4 is going to be just the face with the eyes, like that. And whatever, I mean, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to go here for, but let's dynamesh these with a slightly higher resolution. we go. And I'm going to use the clay brush just to add a very subtle facial expression. Some kind of like eyelids here for this guy. That's about it. I'm not gonna spend too much time. This is gonna be very basic. All right. Yeah, I think that works. Let's give it a slightly more shape to this, because otherwise it's just like a sphere, right? That's the one that we use as a base. All right, that's about it. So let's take this one as an example of kind of like polishing the base. And what I'll do is run a quick zero measure with symmetry. I don't have to duplicate things and then project details, because ultimately, you know, there's not that many details anyway. So let's do that one more time. So now we have a better topology. I mean, it's not perfect, but you know what? Let's undo this and try to drive that topology a bit more. So what I'll do is assign a single polygroup to everything, right? Let's change the material so you can see. I'm gonna switch, or let's just do it with this masking tool. And let's assign a polygroup to the eyes. And let's keep groups and smooth groups like that. And that's it. So we have at least like a nice loop around the eyes. That's all. Alrighty. And we can just turn on dynamic subdivision to see a smoother version of this base mesh. Let's do the same thing for, hang on, I think I pushed this too much. All right, let's take this one right now. That's the pill shape. And let's just go for the same kind of like treatment in the sense that I'm gonna assign a quick polygroup with the masking tools. So holding control, and let's go ahead and mask that area of the face, or where the face is. And let's define that a little bit better. All right, polygroup it. So now this has like different polygroups, even though it's kind of like hard to see. I'm gonna use a have zero measure, keep groups, zero measure, and then we can polish things by groups again, and maybe do one more time another zero measure. Polish, and I think that should be, yeah, that should be good. So all I'm doing at the moment is just going piece by piece and kind of like setting up the bases so that we can detail it afterwards. So it's gonna be maybe we'll just do a lot of contrast between the shapes, because they're very, very simple, and then they're gonna have quite a few details. Let's also fill in the right color. Same thing for the face. All right, now for this one here at the bottom, this one already has a pretty decent topology, so we just keep it like that. Maybe just turn on dynamic, right? For the arms though, this one as well. So then the neck, we can keep these polygroups that we did when we closed holes and redynamesh. So we can do that, and we can also add a kind of like a loop inside in here, so that we are, you know, we're telling ZBrush that we want to keep two pieces, or like a loop in between this, you know, the inner side and the outer area. So let's use the select lasso, hold Control and Shift, and hide that area, like so. Then hide this other polygroup, and Control W. So now we have three different polygroups. And again, we can do this manually, so we can bring in something like the polish by groups, and that will group or polish the difference between the groups. But because I can click on keep groups, and I have the smoothing groups in here, that's all part of the zero measure settings, by the way. We can go ahead and click on zero measure, and it sort of maintains that as well. So let's do a quick polish by groups and polish, and do one more. Let's do polish by features, and this time I don't need to smooth the groups. And I think that's all good. Let's apply dynamic. Go back to that color. All right, so we have almost the top area ready. The arms are, they have a pretty decent topology. They're a little bit stretched, but it doesn't matter. So can just keep that simple. If you want to sharpen, let's say, the difference between this area of the wrist and the rest, we can do a quick polygroup or crisp polygroup. So if I do this crisp PG, that just fixes that. And that crisp PG is crisp polygroup, and you'll find that under the crisp subpalette or section, and it's this one right here, crisp PG or polygroup, or the polygroup border. So it looks at the difference between all the polygroups you have, and it creases those edges. All right, so we have the top area. The hands are also pretty decent, right? So we have pretty much everything except the pants. So let's do the pants now. Select this color, and let's add some groups just so we can have more control over it. So I'm going to hold or select the select rectangular piece, hold Control and Shift to isolate that area. And it looks like it's not symmetrical, so I'm going to mirror and well just in case. Sometimes when you're working with Dynamesh and a really low resolution, you need to make sure that the model is actually symmetrical, because the Dynamesh is just going to place things just to fit the volume, but sometimes it's not fully symmetrical. Let's see. All right, so Control W, so different polygroup there. Same thing for the bottom. Control W, so we have different polygroups in there. We could even try to get a different polygroup here so we can maintain a nice clean edge around the legs. So let's try that. So I'm going to isolate the red polygroup, and let's hide this portion of the mesh, Control W. So now we have a few different polygroups, and we can run the remeasure with keep groups and smooth groups. Let's do polish. We don't have to smooth them anymore. There we go. Just a bit of tweaking. Can enable dynamic, fill object. All right, so we have our character almost ready. Let's see. This one has a pretty decent topology as well, so we don't have to do much with this. And this one we better fix it. So let's select the rectangular piece. Control W to assign a different polygroup. And I would actually like to keep kind of like a middle line, so let's hide part of it. And let's assign a polygroup. Control W. So we have now, yeah, I think this is perfect. Let's use half and polish by groups. Let's do polish. I don't know what happened there. Let's polish by groups. There we go. One more time, polish. So this is a very repetitive action, but hopefully you can see how easy this is. Let's paint those and dynamic subdivision. Cool. So far, let's just go ahead and do a quick save, and I'll check the chat, because this is basically the base of the character ready. So I'm gonna Shift S, just to do a quick character sheet there. Alrighty. Cool, great advice. On the toolbar option, there is a slider that kind of works like a different workplaces. Right on the lightbox tool options, what's the slider? Not sure what you're referring to, sorry. So on the toolbar option, right at the top, there's a slider that kind of works like a different workplace. Oh, you mean this one right here? Like the user interface? I don't know if that's what you mean, but this is just to change between the different UIs. Is that what you mean? Or right under the lightbox tools options? Sorry, I'm not. Yeah, I think I'm confused. I'm not sure what you mean. Javin, what's the difference between having the dot or circle in Polish or in Dynamesh? Yeah, let me show you what that does. So I'm just gonna screenshot and put it in a. Let me see if I can just. Yeah, all good. So Javin has a really good question, which is the dots that you sometimes see with things like mask but change points, or in the deformation palette, like these dots. Those are really basically a binary option, like an on-off option to change the algorithm or how specific features work. So with Dynamesh, for instance, if I turn off the resolution is going to be based on whatever setting you have here, whatever number you have here, best suits the size of the mesh. So it's kind of hard to explain without actually doing it. So let me take these arms and clone them. Right? So if I just go ahead, let's also turn this off. And just for the sake of demonstration, let's isolate these, give it another polygroup. And I'm just going to bring the C modeler, right click, polygroup all, just to give you a rough idea what this does. Okay, so with Dynamesh, if I just go ahead and click Dynamesh right now, this is what I would get. Maybe even less, right? 40. This is what I would get with the normal resolution, because it's basically telling ZBrush, just try to trace a grid that has the size of these squares on the mesh, and that's the resolution I want. If I want to reduce the amount of, or like if I want to reduce the size of the quads to essentially make it a larger resolution, all I have to do is increase the resolution, redynamesh, let's undo that, or increase it and dynamesh it, and the size will be smaller, giving us more points. So this dot right here, what it does is, with the same resolution, so let me just show you. So 64 gives us this. So Shift S just to leave it there. and undo that. 64 again. Right, so 64 with the normal resolution gives us that. With this one, if I click on this dot and redynamesh, well, this case not very obvious, but if I were to just scale this up, this is what I was getting at, and I can redynamesh. I'm increasing the resolution of Dynamesh. So ultimately, what this resolution is, this is not going to work actually because I don't have any other reference, but it has to do with the scale of the resolution of Dynamesh. I'm not explaining it correctly. I think the easiest way to do it is if you want to redynamesh something that has an even or like a consistent resolution with the rest of the pieces of your scene and the scale of your scene, just toggle this off. Otherwise, you can just leave it on and decide the resolution on a per tool basis. So in other words, it's just an algorithm to give you the best results of Dynamesh resolution based on the size. I think that's how I see it. The other one, though, it's a little bit easier to see. So let's do the same thing with the polish by groups or polish by features. If I go ahead and do that like this is polish by features, or I can do the same thing with polish by groups, right? Why is this? Oh, polish by groups. Polish, yeah, polish by groups, sorry. Or just polish. Why is it not doing anything here? Oh, obviously it's because it has groups. All right, polish by groups. Let's Shift S there. Undo that. And if I turn this polish by groups circle off, it's gonna give me a more intense effect, like way more intense. So the on and off of this dot, the simplest way to look at it is it is going to change the algorithm to make it a lot more intense or not. But it's not obviously not the same for all of them. This is the easiest way. I think if I were to just give it a single polygroup, right, and use the polish by features, this is a pretty obvious one as well. So polish by features, let's click on that, give it like a 5. That's polish by features. And if I toggle these polish by features off again and I do it, this is gonna be basically it's gonna remove everything. So it's gonna ignore a lot of the features, if that makes sense. So yeah, I don't change these things much. I sometimes use the one in the resolution as well for Dynamesh. And if I have like lots of resolution and I'm trying to polish by features, I enable these dots. So yeah, I'm branching out too much, but I think one way to look at it is, you know, when you have like the smooth brush, like right now, if I were to smooth these with the smooth brush is fine, but if I have lots of resolution, let's say, I don't know, 1 million polygon, and I use the smooth brush, it's gonna take ages to smooth something out. So I will resource or use the smooth stronger, right, to smooth areas with a polygon count that has lots of resolution, like so. So it is the same thing. When I have lots of resolution, I just go, you know what, toggle this off, polish by features, and that way features polishes everything faster with more strength. So I think it has to do with the resolution anyway. Alrighty, so hopefully that sort of helps. And it was a convoluted explanation. The top of my ZBrush is cut. Yeah, like you won't see it, but yeah, there's at the very top right, you have those icons to switch between UIs. Cool. Yeah. Hang on. There's a couple of questions in here. Boss Tony, how can I get the theme like this. If you're referring to my custom UI and the colors and the placement of this, you can go to my YouTube channel, and I explain how to set it up, but I also link to the actual UI if you want to download it. And I have two versions, one for right-handed people and one for left-handed people. So I'm right-handed, so that's why all my stuff are here on the right-hand side, so I don't have to, reach to the left-hand side and cover what I'm doing with my arm. But it would work in the same way with the opposite side. So you have two options in there. Let me actually show that YouTube channel in case you want to check that out. I think you can find it if you just type Pablo Muñoz Gómez YouTube. Yeah. All right, I'll just share the link so you can find exactly which one I'm talking about. It is called the customizing or custom UI in ZBrush. Creating a custom UI in ZBrush that works. That's the name of it. And then in the description of that YouTube video, there's a link so you can download my UI as well. Alrighty, so cool. Before we get into the detailing of this and show you some of the new tools, just so you know, I released a new set of brushes. I'm just gonna have like a graphic here so that you know what I'm talking about. So the cloth and drapery brushes pack. That is a new pack of brushes that if like this is the first time that you come here to the stream, I do have like a bunch of different packs for different brushes for different purposes. So I just released a new one that is only $15 and it's for cloth and drapery. So let me show you what it is. I'll share the link here as well in case you wanna check it out. So, oh, by the way, this guy here, this character is something else that it's a project that I've been developing throughout this month with my 3D snippets. That's another project I have. let me show you. I should have it here somewhere. Yeah, here we go. So so this is the 3D snippets. Again, this is a different project, but I use the same character to test the brushes, right? So yeah, this is a project that I've been working on this month of February for my 3D snippets. And this is basically a project where every month I take on a new project, like a personal thing that I want to develop, and I basically walk you through the process. So yeah, if you're interested in that sort of thing, kind of like seeing the process, there's lots of different things that you can check out, and it's just 3D snippets. I'm gonna put it in here in case you want. Anyway, going back to this, so this is a set of brushes that are specifically to create, clothing and drapery and, pinching effect of the brushes, tension points, big folds, tiny wrinkles, compression folds. So all of that. It's a pack of 54 custom brushes. I'll show you the ones. I'll show you some of them in action today, hopefully. And it comes with a quick guide, kind of like giving you a rough idea of what the brushes are, a quick tutorial / walkthrough video. So in this video, I just show you how, similar to what I'm going to show you today, but a little bit more in depth with a practical example. And these ones are some of the reference of what the brushes do. So they're sculpting brushes, and that's the key point. They're not just alphas. So you can produce this type of compressions and seams and tapering. Some of them are just like the normal curves. I'll explain that in a second. This one actually is one of my favorite brushes, the one that I'm just showing right now, and I created like a free download for this one. So if you just wanna, I think everyone should have this one. So I made it available as free download. If you want this one, I put it in my Discord channel, and you can just go to the resources channel in my Discord channel or in my Discord server, and you can grab it from there. It's free to download. And I'll show you this one because it's like I love this one. This brush is my favorite from the pack, so that's why I decided to make that one free. But there's all the 53 other ones that you can use. So this is kind of like to create compression folds. Anyway, I'll show you this in real time, so that's better. Alrighty. Can we? Oh, yeah, the Discord channel. Sure. Let's see, because yep, I have it here. Cool. Because some of my students from there's another point. I'll come back to I'll come back to this. So many things. So some of my students from the Extra Mile, which is like a very in-depth, larger course that I have online. They are actually the community managers, so they help me manage the community. So because I'm not like super well versed in the Discord world, but they are the experts. So yeah, the community is pretty awesome, and just need to find the right invite. That's it. So that link is to Discord, where once you join, you'll see a community set of channels, and that one there's one channel called Resources, and that's where I put the link to the free brush. So let's actually start with that brush, because it's it's pretty cool. So let's turn that off. If I go to the lightbox, I have already set them up in here. So these are the other pack of brushes, just so you know. So I have, like, again, skin brushes. I think we used the skin brushes for the previous project with the blue alien. We also use some of the creature skin brushes. So there's a bunch of different things, but the Geiger brushes, just like creepy stuff. So the ones that I'm talking about are these ones. So these are the new brushes, 54 different brushes, right? And these are specifically to deal with clothing and folds and drapery and wrinkles. And there are four kinds of brushes, or four type of brushes, and an extra one that is using dynamic. So those icons that you see here, let me bring in. I do explain this in the reference video. So if you get the brushes pack, you can just watch that video. It's about an hour, but it explains things. But just so you know. So there are four types of brushes. So there's this icon, and these brushes with this kind of like brush icon are essentially sculpting brushes. So you can use them like any sculpting brush. There is this drag icon, and the drag icon just acts as like probably the brushes that you will find online in most places, which they just have an alpha, and then you can click and drag to produce the effect of the alpha. So those things that you see here with these type of icons, they're just alphas that you can click and drag to produce the effect. So they're pretty straightforward. The other ones are this. This icon is for patterns, and basically what this does is take a texture or an alpha with some additional settings from the brush to repeat the pattern. So it just tiles the pattern as you sculpt, but it also has kind of like, it follows a path. I'll show you that one in a second. And finally, there's another one. Let's use green. Like this. So this icon is for curve brushes, and the one that I'm releasing for free, because I think it's one of the best, is this one. This is the brush called the Main Fold Simple, and it is a curve-based brush. So that's what I want to show you. Other than that, there's another type of brush. I'll do it with blue. No, let's do it with orange, which is this one right here, and this one right here. So this is actually the same as the other ones, but these two brushes are based on the dynamic settings. So they're dynamic brushes that work obviously with the dynamic settings in ZBrush. So there's lots of things to play around with. Half of these brushes are experimental, as in, you can just download it and experiment with them, which I think is part of the fun. If you want to see them like this, though, you can just install them in the Pixologic folder of 2022. And these brushes only work with this version of ZBrush 2022.0.5, so the latest version of ZBrush. And if there's a new release, it will work with that, hopefully. And yeah, so let's go ahead and start with the one that you can get from in the Discord server. So this one, this fold main curve. If I double click on that, it will just load that up. And I'm gonna use let's save this. I'm just gonna save. And then we have two versions of this. Character 01. Don't have a name for this yet. All right, so I'm gonna take the the jacket, right? And I'm gonna go ahead and apply the subdivision. So we have 6,000 polygons. Let's do a bit more. 900,000, right? So plenty of resolution. So we also have polygroups, which is great. Just gonna give it a different color so that you can see. We have different polygroups, and we have this brush. Now, like with any other brush, if you have a thin surface, although this is not as thin, but let me show you with a clay brush. If I start doing this to add details, it might look great from this angle, but on the other side, because it's really strong, it's just destroying, the topology. So with these brushes or with this technique or workflow, I'm gonna use the main fold simple. It works in the same way. So if I just try to start doing things with it, I might affect the backside, right? So what I like doing is there are two approaches to this. One is just work on a single-sided mesh, and that's actually a pretty good workflow. So you work with a single-sided mesh, forget about the thickness, and then you add the thickness afterwards. But in this case, that I have something that is already thick, a simple workaround is just to bring in the back face masking and enable it for the brush. So that is under the brush palette. You can go to auto masking and enable back face masking, and that works for most of the brushes. So this is a curved brush. I'm gonna turn off symmetry, right? And let's go ahead and do I'm gonna find some references for some folds. I mean, it's kind of like hard to find something that works for this. Yeah, there's not much reference I can use. I think I'm just gonna make them up. Yeah, let's just make them up. So I'm gonna click and drag like this, and this curve brush just produces like it looks really simple, right? But what's great about this is that you can click and drag to manipulate it before you commit to anything. So you can tweak things like this, and if for some reason you say, you know what, I screwed this up, I wanna smooth this out, you can click on the curve itself, then hold the shift key and smooth this out. So you can smooth the curve, which ultimately smooths the effect, right? Another thing you can do is extend it. So actually, let me undo that. Let's say I can do this, right? And you can say, I mean, maybe this is too strong. Let's reduce the brush size. Click on it again, or maybe increase the brush size. Click on it again. So it works like an IMM brush, if you're, or like an IMM brush that's turned into a curved brush. If you're familiar with that. So that's how it works. So I'm gonna reduce the brush, right? So all of this is before you commit to this change. I'll make it smaller and then extend it, right? So that's that. And we can repeat the process in here. Smooth that curve. And this is what I love about this brush, is that it gives you a lot of control to establish the main shapes of the, like, it's kind of like a blocking, really. That's why I call it the main folds simple. So it's a very simple brush, but it helps you, gives you a lot of control to establish the main folds of whatever you're blocking. Now, another cool thing about this brush is that, let's say in this area here, you can do another fold, right? But in this time, instead of just adding it, I'm gonna hold the Alt key and click on it once, and that inverts that, like the placement of that. And we can do the same thing. Let's say maybe this is too strong. We can change the intensity. I prefer to just use the smoothing. I'll show you why. So reduce the size a little bit just to update, holding Alt. Maybe that's too much. There we go. So instead of changing the, instead of changing the intensity of the brush, which you can totally do to customize this even further, maybe I want to just extend this a little bit more, so I can just extend it a tiny bit, or just pull it, same thing. But instead of changing the intensity, I can just hold, or again, click on the curve and then hold shift just to smooth that out. And then hold again, hold Alt again, just to invert the effect. And remember, with any brush, you can just press Alt and invert the effect. So it is the same idea. So yeah, let's do that a little bit. Maybe smaller brush size. Extend that. Smaller brush size again. Just to tweak that. And this is the great thing about the blocking of the folds. Like, you can just slide that entire fold or that entire wrinkle around and just place it whatever you need to. So it's a pretty fun way to establish those forms. You're on the server. You cannot find the brush. You can just ask in the general chat. It's in the resources. Just ask anyone in there. Like, everyone is like super helpful. Yeah. Okay. So obviously, I'm just going to use the smooth brush to soften this a bit. And the thing with the, with falls and this type of things is that, I mean, this is probably not great. Actually, that's not where these falls should be anyway. Yeah, so that brings me to my point that with these brushes, right, it's not like they're magic. You still have to think about where is the best place to put these brushes or to add those brushes. So let's do this. And we can change the intensity, like I said, for a more subtle effect. Okay, I think you get the idea. I'm just doing this bit too fast, but also just to show you that this is kind of like an easy way to establish those folds. Let's do a couple more here at the back. So there's a couple of the brushes. Again, they're very specific sometimes for specific workflows or effects. If I go ahead and let's load another of these curve brushes. So I have this one tension point brush, and the idea with this one tension point brush, again, let's enable backface masking, is that you can draw a curve like this, right? And you will just produce that kind of like drapery that you'll see in curtains, for example, when there is like a tension point, just one tension point, and there's nothing stopping the brush or the cloth interacting with anything else. It just falls down. So that's kind of like maybe for these areas. And those falls are generally speaking straight, so we'll have to tweak those a little bit. Yeah, something like this. I'm gonna smooth them out and then use the move brush to try to get them straight, because these falls are for the most part just straight lines from the tension point downwards. But it, the brush creates like a nice sort of tapering effect. So we'll just take this and generate that sort of fold. So this is a tool that I use to tweak and adjust some of the some of the main shapes of the clothing for that creature that I just showed you, the shaman creature. Although the main or the primary shapes for that clothing of that creature was done in Marvelous Designer, but I just brought it back into ZBrush to tweak it and doing these edits, this type of stuff that I'm doing. I mean, I think this doesn't work for this jacket at all, but just wanted to show you the way they work. So I'm just gonna go back because they don't really work for the jacket style or the type of thing that I'm doing. Just wanted to show you a bit more of that. What does work though, let me just show you another brush. So there is these the main false soft curve and the main false soft tapered. That's another one that's pretty cool. So this one I would use to generate this type of drapery. Let me undo that. I'm gonna do it without RGB. So the way that this works is you can establish the curve like that, right? Let's say from this angle to this angle, or the two shoulders, and then instead of clicking once to add the effect, which is what happens with the other brush that I just showed you, this time you can just click and drag to establish the intensity of this fold. So you can click and drag, and that's it, right? We can do the same thing like that, and then click and drag, then another one, click and drag, right? And then we can change the brush size, click and drag, click and drag. So as you can see, there's like lots of different fun things that these brushes allow you to do. Oops, I think I forgot to turn off backface masking. Yeah, so I mean, it's not a big deal in this case, but just remember to do that when you're working with thin surfaces. So this is another cool brush that you can use in the same fashion as the first one. So you establish the curve, and instead of clicking to pull a fold like this, you can hold the Alt key and just push it in as well. So when you're dealing with fabrics and folds and this type of drapery, the negative space or the concave shapes or surfaces are as important as the convex ones. So say here, I will just pull maybe with a larger brush size, pull with Alt, and let's just use the move brush just to adjust this. Maybe that was too strong. let's do the same thing but with less intensity. There we go. All right. So yeah, you can establish the kind of like the blocking, that's the idea, but of course you can always go with the standard brush, ZBrush, and let's also use the backface masking and continue refining this process. So you have with the brushes, you can easily establish or set up the blocking, but then you can use the standard brushes just to clean things up and adjust things. It's like a weird thing here going on. Don't know what that is. It's like a weird artifact. That's strange. I don't know what this is. Might be tiny polygon. Yeah, Must be just a visual thing. I don't know what that is. Yeah, so those ones are kind of like the main ones that I wanted to show you in terms of the ones that I would use to block something like this. Again, I'm exaggerating this. This is not how this jacket would look like. just to show you the process, especially because it's really stylized. So something else you can use is the clay brush, and then just add a bit of volume so that it's not as, you know, because if we leave just those folds as they are right now, they might indicate a very thin, or yeah, like a piece of clothing that doesn't have that much structure in terms of the material. So anyway, that was just to show you some of the brushes. I'll show you some of the cool ones maybe for the pants. So let's say some tension points in here we can use. There's a couple of brushes. There's one called One Tension Point, another one called Cloth Pinch Maker. This one right here, tension point folds, will allow you to generate these ones really easily. So let's do the same thing. Backface masking. So I'll just create some tension points like this. And obviously you can play around with the intensity in your tablet. But that's essentially what this brush is made for, just to create this pulling effect of the fabric when you have a tension point. And the cool thing about it is that you have the ability to, you know, do this type of stuff, right? You can control the flow of it, but because they are tension points, they should be straight anyway. So let's do one more here. All right. So yeah, I mean we're moving away from that stylization that I originally wanted it, but I think it's fine. This is, you know, ultimately to show you techniques anyway. So another cool one, let's go ahead and click on Lightbox, is the pattern. So the ones with these icons right here. So let's take this one, for example. So this is just going to give you a nice pattern effect for like, you know, like if this was a puffy jacket, like I can do this type of stuff, right? And generate that sort of thing. So we could do that. Now that I think about it, let's go ahead and go into solo mode, and let's go to polygroups. It's going to the lowest subdivision level, and I'm just going to assign some polygroups, but I'm gonna keep everything. So basically, if I go to the polygroups section, polygroups, I can click on regroup visible. That's gonna give me new polygroups, but are different from the ones that I had, and it's just gonna keep them all. So now I have different polygroups, and I'm gonna keep doing this for hang on, for a few more sections here. Keep regroup visible, and regroup visible. Yeah, something like this, right? So now we have different polygroups, and you know, you can use any type of anything really, anything that you want to create those. Just to give you an example, if I didn't have any subdivision levels, I can just use something like panel loops. So I'm gonna clone this just to show you, and I'm gonna delete the higher res. Sorry, delete higher. I can use edge loops and go ahead and click on panel loops, and maybe combine all of this. Okay, so all the inner areas are kept, and then I can just go panel loops and then polish, inflate, polish again, maybe inflate, and then you can use the the move brush to adjust all of these. But all these pieces are separated completely, so you can do that, right? And then use the brushes to add. Well, right now I don't have enough topology, but anyway, for this one, what I'll do instead is mask by polygroup. So let's do the same thing I did before. Yep, so Control W, and this is the one single polygroup from the inside. Let's do a different color, right? So the inside has a single polygroup, but the rest, the ones that we established. And we can go to the highest subdivision level. We can go to the masking palette, and in the masking palette you have these border, groups, and crease. So we can determine which areas we want to mask. So I'm gonna use border, or sorry, groups, click mask by feature, and ZBrush is going to mask just the difference between the groups, right? Hopefully you can see that. It's also masking this border right here, but it's fine. And then we can go ahead and grow the mask from that point. You see, it's just giving us that nice, smooth masking. A bit more than that. Let's go grow. Right? So at this point, we can manually add some volume. We can try inflate maybe. Right? So with the inflate tool, we can get that same effect and clear the mask, which is pretty nice. And then we can use this tool. Again, the stylization doesn't go with this, but we can use this brush to just basically do that, right? Maybe with a larger brush. I'm gonna go for a larger one. Oh, sorry. No, I was gonna enable symmetry, but no point. Nearly there. All right. Obviously, this is a pattern, meaning that it is using a specific pattern and is styling things up. So you might recognize the repetitive pattern. So what I would do after doing this initial setup is like defining, trying to change that symmetry. So let me just see this chat. Where do you get all these brushes? Nacho, so I shared a link before, so if you just scroll up in the chat, it's called Pablo Cells. Otherwise, yeah, you can just go, let me just share it again so it's easier. I just don't want to spam the chat with all the links. So maybe just check if you can just scroll back and you can see it. And if not, if you cannot see it, I'll share it again. But if you scroll back, it's in there. All right, so let's use another brush. So I have the deep cut fold. This one is pretty useful, but not for what I want to do. Let's go ahead. So the strong gravity fold, this one might be useful for what I want to do. So the strong gravity fold is just a sculpting brush, right? It's like think about it as a really strong really strong standard brush that has and it's very smooth as well, right? And what this brush does is, maybe on this side, when I use it and I'm just pressing really hard, it actually has gravity. So it's relatively simple brush. You can set the same thing up to this brush with the standard brush, tweaking a few things, but basically it has gravity. So hopefully you can see, as you sculpt, ZBrush is going to take that volume and it's going to push it down. So this line here, just by using this brush, is going to be different than if I use it here at the top, right? So it just has a little bit of gravity. So you can use this to maybe add a bit of volume here. Like I said, it's pretty strong. So I'm using that in combination with the smooth brush. So I'll just add a few of these lines. And this is where you can start to tweak and change that symmetrical effect. Oops, I think I'm working with the strongest smooth brush, not the normal one. There we go. Will your drapery brush also work with a multiple curves brush so that you can edit different curves at one time? I haven't tried it. I assume they would. I don't know if it would be helpful for the workflow, but if you have a specific workflow in mind, definitely you can try it. I haven't tried it, honestly. But if it's useful, I might just do an update to the pack later on and see if that works. All right. Anyway, you get the idea of what I'm doing. I just want to show you a few more things because this is repetitive. It's just tweaking. And what I'm doing, you can achieve the same thing with a standard brush. Honestly, it's just this is, I guess, my point with these brushes is all the packs and everything that I shared online. They are tools that I use on my workflow. They are tools that I build for myself, honestly, to work to speed up my workflow. So they are tools that I honestly use on a daily basis. I just make them available for you guys in case they work for you too. But they are not meant to solve all the problems. They're just they're meant to be resources to speed up the workflows. So I can achieve the same thing probably with manual sculpting, what I'm doing, and even all the details for this pattern, that seam that I created. It can be achieved manually, but it will just take longer. So this is kind of like a shortcut in a way. But that's all there is, right? Like I will still use the standard brushes in ZBrush. In fact, if you look at my UI, I have these brushes here, which are basic brushes from ZBrush, and I call them like the essential brushes because that's what I use, most of the time. So, yeah. So everything that I'm doing right now is just trying to break that symmetry from that original pattern that I established. And if you remember, I use the tension points here at the top, so we can easily go back and do that as well. So let's go back to, just to show you another one. So I have this cloth pinch maker. So the idea with this is that you can do similar things to this pattern, but like manually, right? So you can do this thing. Maybe it's not the best way to show you that. You can pinch things basically, but it's more manual, right? So this brush is a great one if you want to create your own kind of like custom brushes or custom alphas more than brushes. So you can use this brush to produce this wrinkly pattern. And then it's not looking that bad. And then you can use that to extract an alpha and then apply it somewhere else. So I covered that in the intro tutorial / reference video of the pack. All right, so I'm gonna use the inflate brush a tiny bit just to inflate this. Not too much. I don't wanna ruin it. Just a tiny bit to tighten these lines. There we go. So yeah, I think that works. For the arms though, instead of maybe doing the same effect, something else we can do is bring in. So I have these simple brushes, but I'm gonna let's see which one I can show you that is cool. So the fold push, this one, it's an interesting one. So let's go ahead and apply the subdivisions and add more to the arms. So if I just go ahead and do this, you'll see it's kind of like a pattern that gives you these holes, which on its own, like if you were to just do this like that, you'll see, oh, this doesn't do anything. It's no point. But the way that you use this brush is to establish kind of like the deep cuts or the deep folds in a compression fold. So let's say around this area, right? You can just go ahead and do that, or manually just place one and then go in the opposite direction, like so. Maybe with a larger brush actually, just to go with a bit more with the stylization. So again, it's more control. It just gives you, you know, that ability to define the direction of the folds. So it's just a matter of defining which side you're starting and which, like, from what side you're starting and where you're ending, and then just going back in reverse. So in other words, you will go from right to left, and you'll see that it tapers towards that side, and then left to right on the opposite side, and then it tapers to the other side, right? And that's kind of like establishing those lines, and you see it changes the silhouette a little bit, right? But then we can go back with another brush. So all of these brushes are meant to be, you know, you can use just one, but you can also use them in combination. So I have these large fold overlap that is kind of like the same thing, but this one allows you to do it continuously. If you want something a little bit, you know, it's stronger, that will actually produce larger volumes. Or you can just press the Alt key and invert the effect for this one, you know, and produce this kind of like large blobby folds, like so, right? So lots of different fun things to do. So I'm just gonna use I think the sharp large fold, this one right here, is just to do. Oh, this is a fun one as well. Probably not the ideal for this part, but if I just go ahead and do this, this is just going to produce like a normal, let's say a normal standard brush, but it actually revolves around itself. So the harder that I press, if I do this with the mouse with no pressure, you'll see the effect, right? So this is with the mouse with no pressure. So it's kind of like it's similar to this brush actually. I think I use that as a base to create this one. Well, I can't remember which one, but there's a brush in ZBrush that does something similar. I just tweaked a few things, and it basically, as you draw, it kind of like takes the geometry and it folds it around itself, around the brush. So yeah, you can play around with that, and it gives you some cool effects. So let's go to the deep cut fold. This one is similar, but it just has it has a different alpha depending on how you apply it, or depending on how you depending on how you apply the pressure. So for instance, if I go to brush, let me show you the alphas that this brush is using. So you see I have this alpha and this alpha, so they're very similar. One has kind of like a deeper cut and the other one is just kind of like a hole. And I'm using the recent feature in ZBrush that allows you to switch between two alphas with the pressure. So if I press like really softly, you get this like tiny pinch, which can be used for seams, right? Or if I press really hard, it just combines that sort of hole, deep hole, with the cut. So this one is a cool brush to use to maintain cuts and add volume quickly, like that. And this is a brush that can be used not just for clothing, right? Like you can use this to create like a wrinkle, like a rhinoceros skin pattern. So you can do this type of stuff, right? So you can create like skin with that. Yeah, so lots of experimental stuff. So yeah, let's go back to what we're doing. So I'm gonna use the main fold soft tapered, right? Something that I explained already. And I'm gonna use this to essentially build some folds for this guy here. Oops. There we go. That's kind of how it's meant to be. I'll do the same thing in here. And using this brush is what allows me to actually break that silhouette even more. And I think that's kind of like the cool thing about it, that it gives you a lot of control for this type of brush, this type of folds. Maybe that's too strong. Let's go into solo mode. We can also push this thing in a little bit. And these kind of like twisting folds, they're always tricky to get them right. But again, with this brush, I think makes things a lot easier. These are folds that kind of like revolve around around like a tubular shape like this. Maybe that's not straight enough. All right, so I'm gonna use the clay brush just to tweak some of the volumes, just to make them a bit more blobby, to go again with the stylization. Let's bring in another brush. That will be helpful for the next thing. Yeah, I just want to show you something different, something else. Oh, this one right here is similar, but it's just very sharp. So this one will just, is really strong. So if I want to push this really, like, so that you don't see much of it, I can just use the Alt key, and you see it just pushes things quite a bit. So if you're doing something a bit more realistic, this actually really helps. Let's say if you do it like this, or maybe like for some compression folds, you draw a curve like this over the surface, and then just hold the Alt key and push it in. It's really strong. Or you can just push it out like that, and you'll see it's sort of like, I mean, this is obviously too much, but it just establishes like pretty strong primary forms. So let's just Let's just use this to maybe push things in here with a smaller brush size. It's a little bit sharper. Oops. Let's do that again. So you see the resulting fold is a lot sharper. So this is something that you can use maybe for a different type of material. But anyway, let's continue. I'll show you some other cool brushes, because these ones are, you know, very controlled shapes. Like you would, I mean, you can achieve, like I said, very similar results with just a standard brush. So yeah, I'm gonna show you a couple more that are more that save even more time. All right, I think that's enough. All right, so nice little jacket. For this one though, let's apply it and add more subdivisions. For this one, we can use the tension points just to add. Where is it? Oh, we can also use the one single seam thing, like that, with a larger brush. If you wanted to, you know, maybe not. I actually want to use this one. No, where is it? Tension. Small directional wrinkles. Yeah, tension folds. So same deal, but the tension points are coming from the bottom. So like I said, it's kind of like more manual process, but it allows you to tense up the fabric. Just a little bit subtle. Right? So yeah, it's not like super strong, the effect, but it helps. Just take the move brush and move this down. All right, so for the fun brushes, let's do, I'm gonna save this as another version. Oh, and I just realized that we only have 5 minutes left. I haven't checked the time today. Really quickly, let me see. Did I create the initial seams in Marvelous Designer? And no, I don't know. Sorry, I'm not sure what the question is. Like I just made them with the brush. The interface as well. So yeah, if you just scroll through the chat, I shared a link to a YouTube video where I explain how to build your UI with a purpose, and there's a link in the description of that video to this UI plus another version for left-handed people that, you know, it has the same thing but on the other side. Now, if you're new to ZBrush, like really new, John, I would recommend. I have another thing. Like if you go to the 3D Concept Artist website, have it here. Here. So if you go to to my online academy where I have like my courses and stuff, you can go to the 3dconceptartist.com/UCG. I'll just share it in here, and you can download. This is a free kind of like starter kit, and you can download these custom brushes that are really simple but super useful. The custom UI that I use in my course as well. Some materials for sculpting and presentation. Some reference, like a reference guide for some shortcuts. So all you have to do is just go ahead and put your name and email to subscribe to my newsletter, and yeah, you can just get this pack that comes with 10 brushes, 5 custom matcaps, the cheat sheet, and the user interface. So that. I think this one is like for anyone new to ZBrush. This is like a really good resource to get started. And this is part of a larger course that I have, which is the UCG, in case you want to check that one out. This one is available. So you can go again to the 3D Concept Artist and just go to the courses section, or here at the bottom, this one right here. It's called the Ultimate ZBrush Guide, and it's just for absolute beginners. And yeah, so feel free to check it out. It is available now, so you can just enroll today, and it covers everything. So this page explains everything that's covered. Yeah, and that leads me to one more thing that I wanted to mention, which is the extra mile. So my extra mile course is like, this is the largest course that I have. Like it's really it's monstrous. This is huge. It's really in depth. It covers a lot of different things. I constantly update it. I haven't updated it for a while now, but I have like really big plans for it to you know, I cannot say too much, but I have really big plans for it this year. So it is permanently closed, so you can join the waiting list. But next week, I hope next week, this is going to open. So I'm gonna open it for, it's gonna be a private enrollment. So if you are part of my email list, you'll get an invitation to join the course next week when I open enrollment. So if you haven't been part of my newsletter, you can just click on the newsletter here in the 3D Concept Artist and join there. I send tips and tricks and updates every week. And yeah, so it's as simple as that. But yeah, so the extra mile course, for those interested in the course, is opening hopefully next week. I'm trying to do everything I can to set everything up for next week, because we just closed the door art challenge, which is something that we've been working on, and you know, like most of my time was going towards that. But now that we closed that contest, we can just focus on that. But yeah, so I have to sort of like leave you guys now, but I just want to show you a couple more things that are really fun. So these brushes right here, the wrinkle wraps and the X-fold, I'm going to use the X-folds. These are updated versions of brushes that I have shared in the past in a course that I did that is called the Clothes and Drapery course. So this one is really fun. I'm going to select the pants, just going to subdivide it a couple times, going to solo mode, and these ones create like the X-fold shapes, like the shape of an X, that is very particular of the compression fold. So in this case, you have like a tension point here around the knee, maybe, or like the, you know, the weight of the heavy pant, or the heavy pants, and then you have this obstacle of the boots, and it's kind of like compressing it. So if I go ahead and do this, it produces these shapes. So right now it doesn't look like much, but the next step after just kind of like blocking these ones so is to go with a smooth brush and soften all of that. Right? So that's just a quick way to add this type of wrinkles. And then of course you can go either with the standard brush, you know, to refine. This brush is kind of like to set up the blocking, so you have a direction or like something to aim. But then you can use any other brush from the pack. I'm just showing you the standard brush because it's probably easier. Just pushing and pulling things. So I'm pushing with the Alt key and then adding the normal effect of the brush. Right, so yeah, hopefully this helps, or like gives you a reference of why I make this this pack of brushes. Yeah, they're just like fun, I think, but at the same time they're quite useful. Alright, so let's say here I might just use the not gravity. Let's use this one. Right, something like that. Maybe that's too much. I think one of the ones I haven't shown you, or like one type of brush that I haven't shown you, is the dragged. So there are some simple ones like this deep fold drag, and it's just this, right? It's a pretty simple brush, pretty simple effect, but it's really like, don't be deceived by the simplicity of some of these brushes, because you can create really complex stuff just by adding those afterwards. Maybe like that. So yeah, it just cuts deeper into those compression folds. Right. Other type of drag brushes that are a little bit more complex. Well, not a little bit more, but so I have this other one that is super simple. That is just to create another complexity. So you can just do one like this, then another one, and another one. So it's kind of like a more manual way of doing those. Maybe if you have like a roll-up sleeve or something, you know. Oops. This one right here, the pinch, that's something that I probably would use for this area. But again, these ones are more like what you can find online, really. Like this type of brushes are just alpha base in a way. So it's just an alpha, a nice alpha that you can just click and drag to produce. So there are a few of those in this pack, but that's not the core of the brushes. And the only reason I'm mentioning this is because the idea of the, let's say, quote unquote, simple brushes is to produce more of these alpha brushes. So, for instance, let me just wrap this up. I think I can go over a couple more minutes just to show you what you can do with the brushes once you get them. It's really fun. All right, so let's save this one. I'm just gonna do a quick save, and I'm gonna go ahead and do save as character 2. Cool. And what I'll do is I'm gonna click on a plane 3D, click on make polymesh 3D, and I'm just going to subdivide it a few times, maybe without the SMT or the subdivide smooth modifier, or what is it? Yeah, subdivide smooth modifier. And I'm gonna subdivide this to 1 million polygons. And then I'm gonna use the custom brushes that I have. So you can do this with the free one that you can get from Discord channel. So this one, and just go ahead and do something like this. Extend it a bit more. Smooth that out. Then do something like this. That. This is what I like about this brush. So let's say if you do it in here and you don't like it, you can just drag and reposition it. That. So in order to push this in, I'm just pressing the Alt key. And that's it. I'm just going to smooth things out a bit. So right now, like this is something that again you can do with the standard brushes as well, but this is like a really quick way to produce your alpha. So you do that with the custom brushes, and then you can just go to let's select the standard brush and let's clone it. So brush, clone, go to alpha, and let's click on from mesh, and then we can sort of frame this nicely. Set the size, let's go for something simple, 124. Click OK, and now we have an alpha. So let's just go ahead and change the drag rect. Let's change the intensity as well, and let's make this alpha to be surface one. Let's go back to our character. We can go to the jacket, and now we have these folds that we did with the custom brushes, but now it's like, you know, this is my own new asset. Right? So that's pretty much what I did for this one. You do it on the other side. So this is a pretty simple way that you can utilize those brushes, or any brush for that matter. This is not, you know, this is not unique to my brushes pack, but yeah, you can use those brushes to produce even more assets. You know, and if you want to do something fun as well, just to wrap up today's stream, you can use something like this one right here. This compression folds over. So this one is really cool. I didn't get a chance to show you, but it basically produces those compression folds straight away, or like the drapery. Let's do a new compression thing. So just trying to find like a good shape. Let's do it more manually. You know, something like this is not perfect. And then I'm just going to do the same thing, alpha from mesh, get that. Let's make it again 124 or whatever size you want. And that's it. We go back to our character, and now we can use this compression. You know, if we want to have like lots of wrinkles. So yeah, it's just a fun way of creating your own custom assets as well. That's why some of the brushes might seem basic. That's the that's the truth, to be honest. There's some of them are really basic, but that's the idea, to keep them simple so that they can produce complexity and be used in conjunction with either the standard brush or the standard brushes in ZBrush, or your own, or to produce your custom assets. Okay, so yeah, I think this is looking nice. It's a fun character. So yeah, hopefully this has been of help. And again, if you want to check out the resources that I've shared, like the free resource, that brush, that's in the Discord channel. If you want to get the pack, I'm just gonna leave it one more time before I leave. If you wanna grab it here, there we go. So yeah, you can just grab that, and yeah, I'm gonna leave it here, and I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. We can continue with this and do something more fun with this guy. Because yeah, I think I'm kind of liking this project. So we can continue with this guy next week, or not next week, sorry, in a couple of weeks. And for those of you who are part of my email list already, keep an eye on your email. I'll let you know as soon as the Extra Mile course opens, and I'm just gonna share all the details. It's gonna be a private enrollment, so it's gonna last only a couple of days next week, hopefully next week. But yeah, other than that, feel free to browse the brushes and let me know what you think. All right, have a good